When Brazilians play death metal, they do it with a certain ambition, and the ambition is to go to the very core of the genre, to see what is crucial in the genre so as to be able to deliver a cult offering, and also with the ambition to access the pulsating protoplasmic nucleus of extreme metal. And they do it with that incredibly evil spirit with which witches laugh in front of death, or with which witches laugh while they are being burnt alive. While many bands from other countries are so busy degenerating with their flat announcements of disaster and so-called deadly revelations, the Brazilians do not lose their soul by turning into what they hate the most, and they do not lose the value as such of things, because they do not lose concentration. They do not lose their obliterating vibe, and they bring to the table an intelligent commitment and a special kind of appeal within which the smell of decay is refreshing and even reflexive, and the smell of decay even has a relentless perspective. Brazilian extreme metal does not sing elegies on the ruins of mythology as it sometimes happens in Europe or in America. Here in Brazil, death metal, the death metal dedicated to ancestral and dark gods is sung in such a way that you feel like praying to those ancestral dark gods. We are talking about a superior poetics, one which accesses that something scarier than the cosmic nothingness. And that something scarier than the cosmic nothingness is the nothingness of the human being. Where this kind of Brazilian death metal passes, it basically divides the world in two, like a fire or like a pestilence. In Brazil, death metal means creation and composition. And the righteousness is always the righteousness of the art, lived in the sincere manner. Today's subject for Metal Classics is an album from 1995 released for Dynamo Records called Black Force Domain by Krisiun. And we have the 2012 edition from Dynamo Records, which pretty much looks like this. Very, very simple, old school and beautiful. This is the CD. This is the inner part, and the lyrics are in here for. So as you can see, very, very simple, old school, beautiful, nothing extra, just what you need to be able to savor a black death and thrash metal masterpiece. So Black Force Domain is the kind of album capable to provide molecular power and domination, and to inspire devotion in this way, that is devotion by means of molecular power and domination. And this is the kind of album that you listen to if you want to feel again the old scent, the death metal scent that you are used to, or to put it otherwise, better the devil you know. That is, the release marks a return to form, to the real form, and to the foundation of the genre, and it possesses evocative power. It possesses evocative power, means it is able to actually speak to you. It has that morbid curiosity that what one could find in the early Norwegian black metal, translatable in the fact that there is always room for a few more impressive and inspiring scars. The kind of release on which nothing erodes or nothing detracts as it goes on, song after song, and where intensity does not damage the quality, or vice versa, on which the quality does not damage in any way the intensity. So for these reasons, the name Krisiun is able to cross centuries of eclipse as anguish and as human fervor often does. In general, in the case of death metal, deformation removes the mystery, but this is not the case in here. This is an album filled with dark mystery, and the music brings forth a stronger force, one that is not afraid of sacred monsters, one that does not recognize anyone as a rival, and I'm sure that this is the ambition of the musicians. Violence here means everything it should mean: enmity, aversion, the reluctant revenge of what could have happened, or the reluctant revenge of what could have been, the feeling you get when shadows bruise your lips. As a general listening experience, the album sounds like blasting the world of God with hymns of the damned echoing through the devastation embedded on sick blood, to quote the lyrics from Sacrifice of the Unborn, or like a monument of profanation on which only blasphemy can bring the truth, like the fire of an infamous force from the which the sorrows of an unknown destiny are coming full force ahead, to quote the lyrics of Meanest Evil. And on this album, the momentum is a total force in its own right, the momentum. And the dismantling crescendos of vibrant anger create an almost infra-real brutality capable to rip the universe into a new one, into a new universe. And I would say that the main point of attraction on this classic is its dark volcanic quality. And in this regard, Black Force Domain is one of those few albums that have the needed standards and the agility to communicate the band's vision. It provides immense rhythmic compulsion, a Cthulhu-like consistency, and inspirational fierceness. That is, it makes the listener desperately want more and more aggression and darkness, as on every song it develops an epic psychological effect. Everywhere there is a viper's fang biting, and not a polished sword or something like that, and some trance-like guitars. So the songs are instant killers, capable to unleash the necessary forces and thus to vitalize the listener and achieve in him or in her the necessary embodiment. Melody in here, it kind of refers to an angular or fractal Slayer-like aggressive channeling of a tour de force, and it proves that ferocity is not really something anyone can teach you. Ferocity, it just sort of happens naturally. Voice, or the vocal parts. As far as the vocal parts are concerned, one must say that death metal happens when the horror that you feel matches the reality of what you see, or we are talking about different pathologies with the same powerful instinct. And at the level of the voice, we can say that this is the nightmare that follows you out of your dreams. And by the grace of the voice, Black Force Domain sounds as if it was composed directly in the nothingness of the underworld, and it proves that in art, in life, and in violence in general, crossing the boundaries is not at all the same thing as violating the boundaries. The voice here sounds like the rails when the train approaches, with the same paralyzing feeling of terror that you hear on the rails when the train approaches, the train being of course the rest of the instrumentation. And the vocalist captures the riffs of the rhythm and of the lead guitar like a dark living surface, and it truly lends some legitimacy to all other instruments. The voice is violent by nature, has a high velocity, mature refinement, and effortless grace. It embodies a ravenous attack with a lot of girth and cumulative effect in its savagery. And the vocalist is a warrior of the evil spawn when all becomes black inside him, to quote the lyrics of Blind Possessions, and he shows that violence is the cure delivered by the morbid shadows of the night that makes you feel the fire burning your corpse, to quote the lyrics of Evil Mastermind. Now, the guitars. If it is true what is being said about the piano, that the piano has the quality of the memory, then the guitars here have the quality of greed, and they constantly function like the punctuation marks at the end of the sentence. That is, they give meaning to every word, to every space, and to every construction. And the guitars head into madness like they do on Suffocation's Human Waste. But it's not really chaos, but a perfectly engineered maelstrom. The guitars are unique, skillful weapons of carnage, capable of breeding by themselves a new type of beast who feeds on the pulsations of the human nerves. The guitars are not ambitious but purely natural, and with a steady immediacy and with over-dominant increases. There is just the right definition to each riff, never becoming generic in any way. The lethal element remains pure and total. And the guitars, by grace of their refinement in execution, allow us to see the cold clarity within the fires of madness. They make this album be a terrifyingly intense one that does not miss out on nuances, that does not require any ventilation effort, and that remains organized and, to tell you the truth, quite pretentious as far as technical execution is concerned. Now, the interplays are a great point of attraction. The guitar tone here is prominent like in Creator, but simultaneously obscured, abyssal and dark as in Slayer's Necrophiliac, for example. The monster created and sustained by the guitars ravages and slices through immense shadows of a person's mortal hidden forces of nature, and it does so in an agonizing instillment. The drums, I would say that much more than the production, the extreme drumming enhances the aggression and intensifies the sound itself, much more than the production, and the drums have a very obvious, violent and unsettling feeling to themselves. They do not drown out other instruments, but make songs be dynamic and infectious. The drums seem to reproduce the demented and threatening heartbeats, I quote again, hidden in the shadows of the dead and raised by the storms, to quote the lyrics of the song Hunter of Souls. And many people say that it is the drums that have turned this album into a milestone of brutality, as the drums possess the degree of technical flair and real intelligence necessary to make things so much more effective in the grand scope of things, that is, to make the attack even frenzier at speeds of about 100 or 200 miles per hour. And indeed, the drums turn this dark, evil and magnificent masterpiece into a thrash, black and death metal powerhouse, and they show how thrash, death and black metal revival could have looked like. And due to the drums, every song is a true statement of dark devotion and enthusiasm, and the compositions stay extremely transparent due to the drumming style. They put extra edges of aggression everywhere, which makes the annihilating rhythm be absolutely crushing. The bass lines. If the guitar riffs accelerate the poetic pulse and the power of imagination and prolong the suspenseful anxiety within the album, the way the bass lines are performed reinforce the atmosphere on the album, and this is perhaps even more fascinating. The bass pumps into the feeling of compactness, simultaneously opening the nightmare area, but in a surprisingly uplifting way. So the bass makes the transition between rhythm and melody, and it gives the foundation for that feeling of demonic elevation, and it gives support to the demonic spine and to the ligaments of that spine. So basically the bass provides the demonic spine of the release and also the ligaments within that demonic spine. And it is not only that the bass is audible or can be heard, but it is downright imposing. It imposes itself by the force of the demonic pulsation. And generally speaking, other instruments such as guitar, violin or keyboards only dress the musical skeleton, but if the bass stops playing, then you will definitely hear this kind of a thing, because the whole construction without a vertebral column is no longer standing. You don't hear the bass, you feel it. But you feel it best when it's gone. That's why the albums on which the bass is present and audible are very, very important albums. And here on the Black Force Domain, the bass is loud enough and it perfectly anchors the guitars. So the bass line stands, and I will quote again, "Transgressed to a life of shadows in search for your downfall, and the bass is the true follower of the rotten cross, the one whose victory stands over power, and the one who truly follows the black spell among the living and the dead alike," as the lyrics of the Messiah of the Double Cross say. Good. As some final remarks, I would say that the rhythmic section has in it something from the logic and from the meaning of the crystals. The rhythmic section on this album is aggressively mineralized through long alchemic manipulations, and it has a hardness that is in a certain sense visible, that is mineralized so strongly and so sharpened across its sides that all types of images find their essential meaning in here. And the intense diabolical reveries sparkled in the listeners personalized these essential images even more, because the band and the listener dream together on the same crystal, the same lines of force of the images. Again, the band and the listeners dream together on the same crystal and across the same lines of force of the images, and the band and the listener measure together the extreme mobilities of imagination, ultimately placing these essential images where they belong, that is, among the primitive phenomena. And the primitive phenomena are the phenomena that are capable to release the powers of clarity, and inside a human being, such a power of clarity will reflect a person's indestructible inner bonds. And so the album takes on a monstrous life of its own, one that dominates and defies imagination, one that replaces the imagination's centers of contemplation with a fascination for the terror emanating from the growing crystal, and with the fascination for the energy of some deadly metaphors. Muito obrigado, mestras das trevais. Thank you so much.